What's up, my wizards? Dev from SBMTG plays with the decks. Here's the thing. We've got blue-red Thopters for you today. A deck that sort of fell out of style when, like, Ensoul Artifact and Shrapnel Blast, left the format a few months back. But I still think it's got a lot going for it. And this deck, you can make for just anywhere between $50 and $80 on TCG Player, whether you're going by the low or the median prices. Pretty fair price compared to a lot of the standard decks nowadays. 22 creatures in this deck, that's about where we want to be. And we'll start off by talking about Hangarback Walker, the only money in the entire deck, really. Everything else is fairly cheap, that's the good news. We just have to play it in the deck. It's the absolute best card in the deck because at the end of the day, it might be the best card in Standard. We're not totally sure about that one, but it's in more Standard decks than probably any other card. There's a reason for that, and it's very much on theme for us. A powerful card that we are forced to play. We've got 3 different creatures that make Thopters when they enter the battlefield. I'll give them to you all at the same time. We've got 4 copies of Thopter Engineer in the deck, 4 copies of Whirler Rogue, and then 2 copies of Pia and Kiran. That's 10 in all. Thopter Engineer, honestly, started off as a 2 of, moved his way up, or her way up, to a 4 of. Really, really good blocker. Even on the 3rd turn, this is fine. And the fact that it makes a flyer is not bad at all. You can swing with the flyer next turn, leave the engineer back behind block, 1-3 really isn't a bad toughness in this format, honestly. And I like the card for what it's worth. 2 creatures for 3 mana is fine. One of them flies, that's fine too. Decent stats on it. There's a lot to like about her. The 4 copies of Whirler Rogue, very important creature in the deck. We get to play all 4 of these because we don't have to worry about the legendary rule that we do with Pia and Kiran. And this can make things unblockable. That's really good, especially considering although we do have a bunch of flying tokens, there's still a lot of creatures in the format that fly and are really important. So we got to get through those or up under those however we can. So Whirler Rogue is very good, especially considering all the buffs in the deck. We're playing 2 creatures that buff our guys plus Ghostfire Blade. So some of our creatures will get reasonably big even if they start off as 1/1 flyers. So being able to make a creature go unblocked is actually really important when those creatures are like 4 and 5 power. And the Pia and Kiran Nalaar, the other most important creature in the deck. I really wouldn't mind playing 3 of these, but we're really pushing the 4 drops here. And yeah, you can play up to 4 Pia and Kiran in a deck, because even if you've got 1 out, you can just drop another one and be fine with that. You get the Thopters, that's what you're worried about, especially in the late game. This can win the game for us, and that it can deal a little extra damage every turn, or it can pick off small creatures, allowing us, to get through with our Thopters. You just pick off, like, other Thopter tokens from Hangarback Walkers. Takes, 2 artifacts to kill 1 Mana Strider, but that happens. A Tapto Jutai, you can kill it with 2 guys, And yeah, we're theoretically 2 for 1-ing there, but almost all of our guys give us things when they come into play. So it's it doesn't feel like a 2 for 1 in those situations. But Pia and Kiran just does so much, incredibly flexible card. And if we weren't pushing the 4 drops so much, we'd definitely play more. And we have 2 creatures in the deck that buff all of our creatures here. We're playing 4 copies of Chief of the Foundry and 4 copies of Ruination Guide, none of which buff, actual Whirler Rogue or Pia and Kiran or Thopter Engineer. Won't buff those guys, but it'll buff all the dudes they make, and it'll buff Hangarback Walker. Ruination Guide buffs Chief of the Foundry, so that's cool. Just really awesome. We need something to make our guys bigger. We've got a bunch of, 1 power flyers. That's a good start. We want to turn them into at least 2 power flyers, and if you can have both a Ruination Guide and a Chief of the Foundry out, our guys are 3 power flyers. That is very formidable. And once we get through with a couple of guys, we can end the game really quick. 14 spells in this deck, and we're playing a few of them for just the 1 mana. We start you off with 3 copies of Fiery Impulse and just 1 copy of Clutch of Currents here. Now, of course, we could play Wild Slash. I do feel like the format is, me and Tony were just talking about this the other day, the format is moving away from Wild Slash in favor of Fiery Impulse. When we first started playing Impulse, we'd see like a 2 or 3 of Impulse and a 4 of Wild Slash. Now we're inverting those numbers, and some decks don't even play Wild Slash at all. Although I still think Wild Slash is an important card, but Fiery Impulse takes out everything Wild Slash does, and then some. And we've got a lot of really important creatures at just 2 and 3 toughness in this format. Notably, Morph creatures. Jace is a very important creature, obviously. Soulfire Grandmaster, Nissa to a certain extent. There's a lot of creatures in the format, aggro guys in general, that are, easy to hit with a Fiery Impulse. And Clutch of Currents is in there as a 1 of because we don't absolutely need it, Something like 10 of our creatures make Thopters when they come into play, So those are really good to Clutch of Currents, or you can use it as, pseudo removal against their guys. And later in the game you can awaken it. I like everything about Clutch of Currents, but I don't want to play a ton of copies of it. We're playing 2 Negate in the deck. Negate does an awful lot for us. Not only will it take out, if you smell a Radiant Flames or a Languish or a Planar Outburst, God forbid, coming your way, you can just negate that. Don't have to worry about it. So counters sweepers is number 1. Not only that, but it counters Atarka's commands, Temur Battle Rage, Dromoka's command, Dromoka's command, Atarka's command, just all of those important instants and sorceries in the format right now. We're playing an awful lot of them. Not only that, but it counters Gideon's. A card's very, very good against us because it can keep up with our production, and it's a buff in and of itself. So we've got to be able to counter Gideon's and other Planeswalkers for that matter. Just the card does a lot for us in this format, not only countering sweepers, but big cards that will outclass us in the long game. And 2 copies of Treasure Cruise to finish off the spells here. Yeah, we had a couple of extra slots. You could always run Wild Slash. You could run more Clutch of Currents if you wanted. You could run a couple of other creatures, But I think that this is a good slot for a draw spell, whether you want to play Anticipate, Dig Through Time, or Treasure Cruise. I went Treasure Cruise here. It's a very budget option. It draws us a whole 3 cards, which is amazing. I'd rather play it over Anticipate, but if you want to play Anticipate, I can totally see doing that too. But for my money, I'm picking Treasure Cruise. A total of 6 artifacts and enchantments make up the rest of our 16 non-creature spells in the deck. Starting off with 4 copies of Ghostfire Blade. I've already mentioned the card. I think it's a no-brainer that we play it. All 20 of our creatures either are or create colorless creatures, and Ghostfire Blade is just amazing. And who's saying we can't equip a Ghostfire Blade to a Pia and Kiran? If we want to pay the mana for it, we absolutely can. Or a Whirler Rogue, we can do it if we want to. But mostly we're going to be putting this on Thopters, making them 3/3 flyers, and that's really good. They can block and trade with a Mana Strider at that point. That's insane when you think about it. So, just having a 3/3 flyer at any time for as cheap as possible is just a really good deal, right? And it goes with 2 copies of Thopter Spy Network. There's a total of 12 artifacts in the deck, including the Ghostfire Blades, and all the other creatures in the deck create artifacts. So, it's not, except for Ruination Guide, but, But in any case, most of the things we play in the deck are artifacts. We're definitely going to play Thopter Spy Network. Allows us to get an artifact, or a Thopter every single turn, and that draw a card whenever artifact creature hits for combat damage is ridiculous. I know it's another 4-drop. There's a total of 8 4-drops in the deck, which is kind of a lot, but we are really mid-rangey in our plan, so not that big of a deal. But Thopter Spy Network, so ridiculously good, and there's another one in the sideboard that we absolutely had to play it. 24 lands in this deck, and this land base pretty much builds itself, I do want to play the copy of Foundry the Consuls. Has synergy with a lot of stuff we're doing, Pia and Kiran, Ghostfire Blade, lots of stuff. And all the buffs. They get the buffs from the 2 guys, too. So, definitely want to play at least the 1 copy of Foundry, but the rest of it pretty much builds itself. Here's our sideboard right here. We had a lot of good options in this color combination for a sideboard. 2 copies of Rending Volley to help out against mostly Mantis Rider, but other flying creatures in the format. 2 copies of Dispel. This could almost make the main deck, and you do see it in the main deck of an awful lot of things nowadays. 2 copies of Negate in the sideboard. And yeah, I'm totally serious. A full play set of Negates in the deck. We really don't want to get hit by sweepers. We really don't want them casting Planeswalkers, especially Gideon. 1 copy of Disdainful Stroke, the last counter spell on the sideboard here. Disdainful Stroke just counters a lot of very important creatures that we don't want to have to deal with. And it counters, again, these Planeswalkers we don't want to have to deal with. And it counters sweepers like Languish and Planar Outburst. So, just, yeah, at least 1 more of these. 2 copies of Roast in the sideboard, self-explanatory, kill big guys. 3 copies of Seismic Assault. This is especially good because it only hits non-flying creatures. Ghirapur Aether Grid is great in these slow, grindy, board-statey kind of matchups where we can't get through as often as we'd like to, So Ghirapur Aether Grid can really just deal a couple of damage a turn for us and end up winning us the game. 1 copy of Clutch of Currents in the sideboard, just to supplement the main deck copy. And finally, 1 copy of Thopter Spy Network, just to supplement, again, the main deck copies of this card. Here are your power rankings for this deck. A final score of 61, which is about where you want to be. You're spending about 50 or 80 bucks on TCG Player to make this deck. So really 61 is not bad. It breaches the 60 mark. That's a good thing. Good line to be above. And we do a lot of things fairly well. We don't do anything really, really poorly. We could be a little bit better in the defense department, and we could have better resiliency and versatility for that matter. But that said, Hangarback Walker brings us some resiliency. Just the fact that, even if we get swept, just playing 1 creature can put 3 creatures on the board is a pretty resilient thing to do, too. And Thopter Spy Network is obviously a ton of reach and resiliency, too. We have a little bit of an advantage over a lot of tokens decks, because sure, tokens decks will play Hangarback Walker, yes, but they'll also play, like, Gideon, someone will play Retreat to Emeria, Dragon Fodder, Hordling Outburst, and none of those tokens fly. All of ours do. Well, that's all I got for this time. Let me know how you felt about this one. I think Blue-Red Thopters really builds itself, and it's got a lot of good options. If you wanted to upgrade this, you could probably do Dig Through Time, although I do like Treasure Cruise. You could always include Jace in the deck if you want to. But mostly, I like the way we run right here. We're very condensed. It's a very concise version of what this deck is supposed to do, and it runs pretty well. What are we doing next time? Well, working on Budget Modern Thundercats, had a pretty good response to that, and had an amazing response, like I said in the last video, to the idea of Mardu allies, but I want to know what you want to see more. Do you want to see, I've got a couple of things brewing, the Mardu allies deck that's kind of like a Rally the Ancestors deck. Got a lot of reanimation options, use Zulaport Cutthroat and Claster Healer in a Trixie deck. Or do you want to see just the straight up Mardu Allies aggro deck that plays a lot of solid creatures? It doesn't necessarily rely on big tricks. It might play a March from the Tomb or two possibly, but we're not trying to rally for the win. We don't play, Claster Healer. We just mostly play efficient aggro creatures. Which one of those would you rather see? If you enjoyed this content, do me a favor, hit the thumbs up button. It takes like 2 seconds and it just helps us out tremendously. I had no idea. Really appreciate it when you do that. Like, share, comment, let us know how you felt. I'm always into that. And sub if you're new or if you haven't done that yet. It's really cool when you do that. I'm Dev from SBMTG. Thanks for watching, my wizards.